through this.
Let's talk about something every dispatcher depends on, but rarely thinks about until it's sore and completely unusable. Now you might think, hey, this is an old person problem. I'm young. But it's something that carries calm through chaos, clarity through confusion, and it's one of the things that isn't just part of the job, it is the job. It's your voice, and that's up next on TiPS, Today in Public Safety.
Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Here's your host, Fletch, with today's tips.
Welcome to TiPS, Today in Public Safety. This is Fletch. I'm a NENA certified ENP, and each week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I bring you the most relevant news and information about the public safety industry. Today, we're going to talk about a side of telecommunicator wellness that's often ignored. But if you're working behind a headset, you're not just taking calls. You're the voice in the room, where every second counts. Now, in my career, I spent a lot of time behind the mic as a dispatcher. I've had side hustles in radio, as well as voiceover work, and of course, my podcasts like this one. So today, I want to take a few minutes and talk about your voice and throat care. Because in your world, your voice is one of your key tools. So let's make sure it's tuned up and you're keeping it strong and ready for action. Why your voice matters. As a professional telecommunicator, you're the first voice a caller hears, as well as the critical link in the chain that keeps responders safe. You know all too well that telecommunicators provide the calm, clear voice on the end of the line, hour after hour, every day. And I can tell you this, if your mic picks up strain, tension, or fatigue, it shows. A caller doesn't see you, but they do hear you. And if fatigue, hoarseness, or poor tone creep in, the clarity will suffer. So protecting your voice is one of the most critical things you can do. Core habits for good vocal and throat health. So let's dig into a few practical habits that you can use shift after shift. The first, and one of the most important, is hydration and ambient air. Make sure you drink water steadily. Your vocal folds or cords need lubrication to vibrate well. Dehydration means less flexibility, which means strain. And if your center is dry from AC, heating, or low humidity, you're adding extra load to your throat. Next, warming up and cooling down. Before your shift or heavy call period, take a few minutes and do some lip trills, gentle hums, and glides to warm up that vocal system. Trust me, a little corny, but it helps. And after a busy shift, remember the cool down is just as important. Soft hums and relax. Don't just jump out of the chair and keep using a fatigued voice. Give it some rest. The next technique is posture. Remember to sit and stand tall. Keep your shoulders relaxed. And make sure your headset's positioned so you're not leaning or cranking your neck. And remember to use your breath from the diaphragm or your core. Don't push it from your throat alone. That overworks your voice in a big way. Then there's the all-important vocal hygiene. Avoid clearing your throat. That really forces your vocal cords to slam together harshly, and that causes a lot of trauma over time. Obviously, avoid heavy shouting, but also avoid extended whispering. Believe it or not, both extremes stress the vocal folds. And watch your environment and lifestyle. Smoking, dust, allergies, acid reflux, even heavy dairy and spicy foods all have negative impacts on your throat and voice. And then there's rest and recovery. If you feel your voice getting tired, scratchy, or hoarse, back off if you can. Try to use micro breaks, a minute here or there. That won't require your full voice use, as that can help a lot. And outside of work, try to get some good rest and sleep because that equals better voice resilience. Environment and shift specific tips. Let's look at some setup and shift specific tactics that may help. The first is your workstation setup. Your headset and mic placement really matters. If you're leaning in or shouting to be heard, that's a huge extra load. Then there's the ambient noise and acoustics. If your center is loud and noisy, you may unconsciously raise the volume of your voice, again increasing your vocal load. And then there's scheduled voice breaks. Not always possible, but if you can, build into your shift a quiet task every hour or so, even for 5 minutes. Take some time to update the CAD, do some paperwork, or anything without heavy voice use. And then there's that pre-shift prep. Remember to hydrate before you begin, warm up, and get into good posture. After your shift, when the headset comes off, cool down your voice. Then, if you're fatigued, lay off heavy socializing or shouting. Give your voice time to recover. When to seek professional help. Finally, know your red flags. Look for things like hoarseness lasting for more than 2 weeks, loss of your vocal range, or major changes in your voice quality, throat pain when speaking, or feeling something stuck. These could indicate damage or strain to your vocal folds, and in those cases, you need to consult an ENT or ear, nose, and throat specialist, or possibly a voice-trained speech pathologist. And you need to remember that early care means shorter downtime. Trust me, ignoring small issues can equal a big problem later. That wraps up this episode of TiPS Today in Public Safety. I hope you found it useful and you learned something new. Remember to like and subscribe, and join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday each week for more 911 tips. You can follow me on most social media at Fletch911, and if you have a comment or suggestion, please let me know. Thanks so much for listening, and if you're in public safety, thanks for what you do every single day. This is Fletch. I'll catch you next time. Stay safe and take care.
You've been listening to TiPS Today in Public Safety, your go-to podcast for today's breaking stories and public safety news. Hosted by Fletch and available every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on 911tips.com. That's 911tips.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and remember to join us each week for the latest on NG911. I am Spider Harrison, the official 911 voiceover dude. Catch me on Sirius XM on various channels, including 90s on 9, the 10 spot, and on the weekend countdown on Hits 1. Or don't, regret for the rest of your life. Either way, I'm good.